about you?
So kind of similar to Brad, I enjoyed flying, but I realized I didn't want it to be my forever solution. So I started looking at routes to kind of execute a transition into a career change, getting out of the military. So it all kind of started, honestly, with hearing about Stuxnet in pilot training. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, that's pretty stinking cool. Like all the stuff that went into that just got me fascinated. So that kind of set the hook. And so something that was just in the back of my mind for a few years, right? I was getting established as a flyer. And then once I was a little more established in that role, I started looking to execute, or I guess set the groundwork for that transition into a different career path, and wound up subsequently pursuing a master's in computer science. And throughout the course of that, I happened to be lucky enough to get my Security Plus degree or certification. And that was actually the first time I learned about pen testing. So I hadn't actually heard about that before. And our teacher had a little bit of experience in the field, and similar to Stuxnet, I heard about it. I was like, man, that just sounds kind of awesome. And so sort of continued with that in the back of my mind, continued getting the degree. And then sort of the last thing that really was like, I want to go into this, honestly, was listening to the podcast Darknet Diaries that my brother turned me on to. And just tons of great episodes on there. But I remember listening to specifically the one on NotPetya, the worm that Russia used to essentially take down a huge chunk of the computer systems in Ukraine. And with my military background and just hearing about that, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is important. Like this is something that I want to get involved in. And it's a good chance to kind of bridge some of my existing knowledge base, at being involved in defense, and move that, I guess, out of defense, but into the same field, which I think is extremely important for, well, just all of our security. So that's sort of the progression that I went through that got me interested in it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And Brad, what about you? You were already working in cyber, so what made you want to keep following that career path into your civilian life?
Sure. So the work I was doing at Fort Meade was incredibly interesting, and we got to do things that I'm never going to get to do on the civilian side of the world. But it was also extremely high tempo. We were working operations constantly, pretty much every day, and they're still working them now as I've left. And so I knew I'd want to eventually transition out, especially because with cybercom skills, they're very specific, and you're not necessarily getting that real breadth that you're gonna want out in the civilian life. And so I started planning from there on my way out, trying to expand my breadth of knowledge, get some more certs, get some work on bug bounties, and capture the flag challenges and whatnot. And then really just kind of start transitioning out so I could get more to what I usually describe as a job instead of a lifestyle. The military is great at giving you everything you need to survive in the world, but they also require you to stay in your box, and that box is extremely well defined. So I was really excited to start moving out, and luckily line up with Bishop Fox and really expand my knowledge base.
Great. And cybersecurity wise, you both have chosen to go to the offensive side as you've transitioned to civilian life. Why this side versus joining a more defensive team? Brock, what about you?
So I've always liked puzzles, and naive me, it was like, this seems like a puzzle. And well, to be fair, that's what a lot of it is. But that was what kind of got me interested. And then that, in addition with essentially the offender's advantage, right? Like we only have to find one vulnerability, whereas on the defensive side, it's like, you've got this big old dam holding back a floodgate, and you got all these little holes that you're trying to patch. And if you can't afford to miss one. And so it seems more appealing to me to be hunting for that one hole than to trying to plug all of them.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, Brad, what about you?
No, I completely agree on the puzzle front. Backing it up a little bit, when I was a jet engine mechanic, I was actually working on an applied math degree because I love working all that stuff and just kind of breaking it down into smaller bit pieces and really taking it out. And that's actually what led me to go into cyber. Is I felt it was a good transition, but when I got there, I absolutely loved it. Right. And then the other half is it was mostly offensive side was just kind of where my experience lie already. And it's when I was trying to build myself to get out of the military as well. A lot of that work was towards offensive, being capture the flag or bug bounties. And so it just seemed the right fit. And then just to back up on what Brock said, it's the defensive guys have it really rough. You need to get one thing to get in. They need to block everything, and it seems impossible. And honestly, I think the offensive side, especially here at Bishop Fox, is what helps the defenders set up to block all the attackers.
Awesome. Okay. Well, as you were both starting to think about making that transition to civilian life, how did you hear about SkillBridge? What was appealing about it? Were there other benefits that it seemed to offer, maybe the other programs didn't? Brock, what about you?
So, as previously said, I had been looking to execute a career shift. So I was looking at different options that were available because if we're being honest, within the pilot community, the typical career progression is you fly for the military, you get your commitment fulfilled, and then you transition out into the airlines, and that's where people go. And that didn't appeal to me, so I was researching different options as far as like internships and things like that, and honestly, kind of just stumbled across SkillBridge, but the more I read about it, the more it seemed like just honestly kind of an awesome opportunity, right? At the most basic level, you're, as the transitioning service member, still having your needs met by the military because they're still paying you, they're still providing healthcare for those last 6 months. And then from an employer's perspective, even if it's essentially free labor, right? Like you're a free intern. And so it's this cool win-win where it's like, kind of there's no way to lose as the employer, right? And best case scenario, you get somebody who's skilled or motivated or good at the job, and you wind up hiring them on afterwards. Like I've been fortunate enough to have happen with me. But there's essentially it's low risk for kind of both parties, right? Worst comes to worst, even if I hadn't gotten hired after my SkillBridge internship, I would have left that with more skills, which is kind of the idea. That would have subsequently helped me pursuing other work. So that was what really appealed about it to me.
Awesome. Brad, what about you? What got you, how did you learn about SkillBridge, and, what was appealing, and did you find that it offered new benefits that other programs didn't?
Yeah, I actually didn't know about SkillBridge at first. I had decided a couple, 2 or 3 years out from the end of my enlistment that I was gonna get out after the end, and I hadn't really heard of it until luckily one of our brother services, the Army, the chief warrant officer, came into our office one day and just told us about it. They're like, hey, "Have you heard of this SkillBridge thing?" And he went on to explain it to us, and I was set on that as soon as he started talking about it. We put in the research for a while, and it's really a great program. It's lets me get out a little bit early while I'm still getting paid by the Air Force, keep that job security, and health insurance, not have to worry about that. And then, like Brock said, it's just a win-win. I get to feel out the company gets to feel out me, see if it's a good fit, and if it's not, it's a great way to build up some of those skills that the military isn't giving you, that you really need in the civilian career field. For example, here at Bishop Fox, I got a lot of experience with web penetration testing that I really didn't have in the military. And if I decided that Bishop Fox wasn't a great fit, then I could absolutely continue to use those skills somewhere else. Luckily, it worked out for me as well.
So let's talk about the actual process you went through transitioning to civilian work. What was the process like going through SkillBridge, and what can current military members expect? And do you have any tips or advice to those that are, embarking on SkillBridge or looking to join cybersecurity as a civilian career?
Sure. So I can outline, they made some slight changes to the process, like right as I was executing my transition. So Brad might have more insight into the process as it stands now, but it's essentially this. So you're going to, as a transitioning service member, the program takes place within the last 6 months of your service commitment. And so prior to that, I'd recommend probably a solid 6+ months out. You want to start looking at options for different companies to work with. And there's actually a SkillBridge website that has a list of approved companies and sort of their job postings, for lack of a better term, right? A quick description of like what they do, what they're looking for, etc. And so you're going to start looking at some of those companies. And then the first step is to start coordinating with, well, it's kind of a mix. There's several steps that you got to do. You want to coordinate with the company. You should also be greasing the skids with your commanding officer, who's going to be the ultimate approval authority for you actually doing this. So you're going to lay that groundwork with him or her, and then reach out to different companies and start getting a feel for what company you want to conduct your SkillBridge with. And then after that, it's going to be a matter of getting essentially the right documentation from them. I think it's just a letter that sort of outlines like what your plan is during your time at SkillBridge. And then getting that approved via your education office. You're going to submit a bit of paperwork online, and then ultimately it's just a matter of your commander signing off for you to go. As far as advice or tips, the biggest thing I can give is like, be your own advocate, right? So lay the groundwork well ahead of time. And while it is still the military and there's operational necessity, don't be afraid to be proactive and be a proponent if you start to get a little bit of that pushback of, hey, like, why does this program exist, right? It's going to be easy for someone to say, no, like, we need you for this last 6 months, can't let you go, et cetera, et cetera. But as Brad alluded to, you're not always going to be exiting the military with the skills that you need on the civilian side, right? Oftentimes it's very specific, like military only things that you don't do elsewhere because there isn't the need for them elsewhere. And that's the whole point of the program, is to give you that ability to transition. And so try not to accept no for an answer, right? Ask other routes if you have to, and really push for it, because the program is there for you to help you execute this transition.
Yeah,
One
that's great
thing
advice.
that I would like to interject is we keep talking about 6 months, and that is like the maximum amount is the 180 days. But we do have people who sometimes come on for 3 months or 4 months. So that might be another avenue to explore if the full 180 days is not possible. 3 months can still absolutely make sense and make a difference. I think anything less than 3 months, you're going to be hard pressed to find an employer to take that on, because it takes a week or two just to get onboarded. So, but yeah, 3 months, 4 months, there's a lot of options.
And to echo that, that was actually my case. So I was trying to do the full 6 months and got that pushback, but kept coordinating. Fortunately, my people in my chain were good about advocating for me, and I wound up doing a little over 4, if I recall correctly. But it was plenty of time to get spun up, and if you're motivated and quick to learn, it was a really good program for me.
And it's important to note that also includes your terminal leave and anything else. It also has to happen in conjunction. So if you have 2 months of terminal leave, that's going to be 2 or up to 4 months of SkillBridge that you can do with the program. But it's for me, it's first and foremost, you got to understand that SkillBridge is a commander's program. They can say yes or no for any reason. They can pull you back if they need you for a mission or whatnot. So it's really, really important to really try and lead the commander with as much time as you can, as well as your own supervision at the lower level. And just because right now I have several friends in the military who are looking to skill bridge, but their skill bridge window just opened and they still haven't found a company. It's all on you to get that information, to get connected to the companies that you might want to work with. And in addition, because I don't know if this was how it was when Brock went through it, but they've recently made a change where you can only pick companies that are on the SkillBridge website to do SkillBridge with. If they are not on the website, you can't do it. However, recently we've seen that there are several SkillBridge companies that you can work with, including Hire Our Heroes is one of them. If you tell them where you want to work, they can reach out to a company that's maybe not on the SkillBridge website, and you can then still connect with that company, and they are the intermediary. It also includes some other things like professional development and whatnot.
Okay, great. Well, it sounds like be your own advocate is definitely a really good piece of advice for anyone pursuing this program. So inquiring minds want to know, how did you both find Bishop Fox? Brock, I think you talked a little bit to this, but what made you want to invest your SkillBridge time into Bishop Fox?
So yes, beyond the general interest in cybersecurity, honestly, a lot of it was that our company's got a really good listing on the SkillBridge website. Like I was just looking at different options, mostly in the Colorado area actually at the time, and decided to broaden my search a little bit and just stumbled across our excerpt for the job description. It's like, this company sounds awesome. And then I subsequently went to the website. I was like, yeah, this company does really seem awesome. And from there, I wound up reaching out to Caitlin and did a little bit of the back and forth, and she got me set up with the Cosmos program. But yeah, that was a big thing. And then the other thing that I really liked was that honestly, the willingness to give someone a chance. So the company is not so much about who you are on paper so much as who you actually are, right? Like, what is your capacity to learn? What is your interest? What is your motivation level? And things like degrees or certs or anything like that is obviously still useful, but more secondary to you as a person. And so that was a big thing for me, especially coming from a disparate career field where I didn't necessarily have a ton of the hard skills. Like I had a degree, but it wasn't in specifically cybersecurity. But I had enough overlap for them to give me that shot, and then just tried to hit the ground running from there. But those were the big things for me, is just like the feel that I got for the company culture and what values they had, in addition to, like I said, just frankly some stellar work on the part of getting that SkillBridge program out to people.
How about you, Brad?
For me, it was a couple of things. One is Bishop Fox already has kind of a reputation in our career field for their tool development and a lot of their other work. But more importantly, is Bishop Fox seems to continue to grab our people after they leave the military. There are 4 people I work with actively today that I have worked with in the military prior, and every one of them said they absolutely love it here. So that was my first interest. And so once I started talking to them directly about maybe coming on, and them explaining to me just kind of how everything is set up and how well you guys do remote work, I was absolutely sold. And I've only continued that thought as I've worked here.
Great. Well, we're glad you both made it here to Bishop Fox. Caitlin, I'm going to wrap up. I have one more question for you. For anyone interested in pursuing SkillBridge with Bishop Fox, what recommendations do you have?
Yeah. So, one thing to keep in mind is that we are a 400-person company. So as you can imagine, that means our openings are limited. So we can't bring on 100 service members a year, and we get hundreds of applications a year. So what I would say to that is like, when you are reaching out with an inquiry, sometimes I get inquiries that are just like, I'm interested in SkillBridge. That doesn't really help me when I'm getting maybe 5 of those inquiries a day. So it's important to be like, I'm interested in SkillBridge because this is my role in the military. This is what I'm doing to learn more about this field. This is why I was interested in the job posting. That's like something that I could use as a recruiter. That's something that I could take to a hiring manager and say, hey, are you going to have room to bring on somebody from SkillBridge? This looks like a person who could be a really good fit. Because as a 400-person company, we might not be paying to have somebody from the program. Like, we might not be paying a salary those 6 months, but we are investing a lot of resources in, like, you're going to have a manager, you're going to have a mentor, you're going to have like a team of people trying to help you get up to speed, even if you're already pretty strong and technical. And that is an investment. So everybody we bring on, we want to know that, it's a good investment. And then also, ideally, we want to know that we have a full-time job waiting at the end. So that means our hiring goals have to line up with that piece of the puzzle as well. So what would my recommendation be? It's the same for anybody we're hiring at some of our like entry and mid-level roles. Is we want to know why offensive security. Like, the people we hire are usually pretty 120%. I want to be an OffSec. I'm sure of it, and here's why. So like, help me understand why you picked this field, what you're doing in your free time, what you're doing in your professional time to help get you to that goal of working in the field. Those are the people who tend to do really well in the interview process and tend to do really well working here. The ones who are just like, they eat it, they breathe it, they sleep it. Not that we want you working around the clock, but like, a lot of these people are like, if I'm not working, I'm on Twitter reading about OffSec. I'm on Reddit reading about OffSec. I'm tinkering in my home lab. I'm pursuing a new cert. I'm learning something new. That tends to be a really happy fit for Bishop Fox. So if you can show me that in your application materials, I know that's kind of a tall order, but if you can help demonstrate that, then that's something that I can use to help open doors here. So I know that's a long answer, but definitely know that, like, for a lot of SkillBridge programs, I'm sure Bishop Fox isn't the exception. There's a lot of interest, and taking a little bit of time to explain who you are and how it lines up helpful. And then also understanding that timing is everything. And there might be a couple of months where we can hire 5 or 6 people. And then there might be a couple of months where we can't hire anybody because it's our busiest time of the year and we don't have the interviewers and we can't invest in bringing on new talent at that moment in time. So understanding it ebbs and flows, and staying in touch and advocating for yourself and giving good information. That's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah, those are fantastic insights. And I think just generally speaking, those are great insights into our culture at Bishop Fox too. So thank you for that. And it is time for us to wrap up today with this session. So I'd like to say thank you so much to our audience and our guests for joining us today. To find out more from Bishop Fox about the veterans in our workforce, please visit bishopfox.com. We would love to hear from you. So if you have ideas for upcoming live stream events, let us know on our social media channels. And thanks for joining, and have a great rest of your day.